Chiefs Kingdom, what's up? Gary McKenzie here, back for another episode of Gridiron Lines. This is RGR Football, and today we're going to talk about the Chiefs' defense, and then we're also going to go through Andy Reid's awesome performance versus the 49ers in his last week's matchup. Let's go. That intro still rocks. Still rocks. This week's fan shout out, like we always do, goes to Lee Dre Stephens. He says, no Willie Gay, no McDuffie, our top draft pick, no Cook, no Fenton, who's having a bad year, no Tershawn Wharton, rookies starting quarterbacks, both of which were late-round picks, and the Chiefs still held the Bills to 24 points, and they're 4-2. The defense gets a B grade from Lee Dre. So, Lee Dre, thank you. You're this week's fan shout-out. Appreciate the comment. I think you're right. You know, the Chiefs defense has seen some hard knocks to start the season with injuries. As far as their schedule goes, they haven't really played the most difficult offensive opponents. Their offensive opponents averaged about 15th place as far as points per game ranking goes, but they've still done a good job for what they've been through. So I agree with you here, Lee Dre. The defense has done about a B-level work, but they still have room to improve. So this week's detour, we're going to take a look at the defense, and I want to start by talking about George Karlaftis. So I ran a query through Pro Football Reference to see how similar players like George Karlaftis had done being so young. So if you remember, George Karlaftis, he's only 21. A lot of guys that get drafted, they're 22, 23, and Karlaftis is 21, and he just turned 21 in April, so right before the draft. And I wanted to see how other pass rushers had done who are 21 years old and had only played their first 7 games. And while I returned a lot of hits for that query, I wanted to look at, pass rushers who only had 1 sack or a half sack, similar to how Karlaftis has done so far this season. And whenever I did that query, I came up with a ton of players, and some of those players were Richard Seymour. He only had 1 sack after his first 7 games, and he was 21 when he was a rookie. Michael Strahan only had 1 sack. Eric Swan, 1 sack. John Randall, 1 sack. Geno Atkins, half a sack. So I'm not saying that Karlaftis is going to be, the next John Randall or Richard Seymour, but I will say the precedent is there for him to turn around. Being so young, he has time to improve. And I think the number one thing that could happen to the Chiefs defense, the best thing that could possibly happen to them, is if Karlaftis has a strong second half of the season after the bye and starts churning out some more sacks. He's been getting pressures, but he hasn't been sealing the deal. I think he's close. I think once the games get colder, he's going to be able to use his physicality and his tenacious motor to take advantage of some of the looks he might get from offensive lines and start sealing the deal and sacking the quarterback. I've been harping on the Chiefs defense for a lot, the past few weeks. And the reason I've been doing that is because it's so hard to win a Super Bowl if you don't have both a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. Go back and look through the history of the Super Bowl and see teams that have won it. And very rarely will you see a team that doesn't have both of those win a Super Bowl. The 2006 Colts were one of those teams who didn't have a great defense, but they got help from their secondary later on in the season when a player came off the injury, report, was able to play. I can't remember his name. It's escaping me. So maybe in the comments you can tell me. But I really want to see the Chiefs defense continuously improve throughout the season, particularly in points per game allowed, yards per play. As far as sacks go, they've been doing actually a pretty good job getting after the quarterback. And I attribute that a lot to Spagnuolo dialing up some really creative blitzes, keeping quarterbacks on their toes, and getting there with unusual, non-typical pass rushers. L'Jarius Sneed is second on this Chiefs team with 3.5 sacks. Chris Jones leads the bunch with 5 sacks. He's on pace for about 12 sacks in 2022. In total, the Chiefs have gotten 19 sacks so far in their 7 games. That's the 6th most in the NFL. And if they played a full season, that would be 46 sacks, which is a pretty good total. So I really credit a lot of the Chiefs' defensive success, particularly with rushing the passer, to Spagnuolo's aggressive scheme and him mixing his looks up. I think he's done a very good job so far in 2022. Some of you may have some complaints let me know in the comments. I'll read them and look into those further. But as far as the pass rush goes, I think the Chiefs defense has done a good job. In terms of yards per play and points per game, when they started the season, they were very strong in both of those. But after week 7, they are now 17th in yards per play, giving up 5.6 yards per play, and they're 25th in points per game allowed. That is, they're allowing 24.6 points per game. So I broke it down through a week by week breakdown of how the Chiefs defense has performed against their opponent's average. So what you're looking at here is a graph that shows a line, a black line that represents the opponent's average points per game over the first 7 weeks of the season, and then the points allowed, or the points that the Chiefs allowed in that game. So the first week of the season, the Colts are averaging about 23 yards or 23 points per game. The Chiefs only allowed 21 points per game. That's what you want to see. You want to see the Chiefs defense allowing fewer points per game than their opponent is averaging. That means they're overperforming what that team would do on an average week, which would go and indicate that the Chiefs are playing an above average level of defense. You can see through weeks 2, 3, 4, and 5, their defense started kind of falling backwards. The week against Tampa Bay is really standing out. The Buccaneers have only averaged about 18 points per game, but they gave up 31, or they allowed 31 points in that game, and that really hurt. So the Chiefs defense, what you want to see going forward is continuing to lower their points per game allowed, and I think they're going to do it. I think that their opponents for the rest of the season, they're going to face some weaker offensive teams. And then also they're going to get Trent McDuffie back. And I'm very high on him. I think that he is going to be a good starter for the Chiefs in the secondary, playing the cornerback position. And you also want to see Mike Dana come back and make an impact. He's another player that can help. Willie Gay just came back last week. He's going to work himself in. But after the bye week, I want to see the Chiefs defense continuously improve in terms of points per game allowed, and I think they're going to do it. In terms of yards per play, this is a little more helter-skelter than the last graph, but once again, the black line represents their opponent's average points per game through the 7 weeks of the season, and the red line indicates the yards per play allowed by the Chiefs in that particular game. So the one high point so far in the season for the Chiefs defensively has been against the Buffalo Bills. Not only did they allow fewer points per game than the Bills scored on average, they also allowed fewer yards per play. That gives me a lot of hope because when they faced their toughest opponent, they came through more than they did any other game. But similar to the points per game graph that we showed, we want the Chiefs defense to continuously give up fewer yards per play versus their opponent than what they're averaging throughout the year. And they've only done that 3 times, 3 out of the 7 games this year, once against the Cardinals, once against the Colts, and then the third and final time versus the Bills. So you want to see this continue to drop. Like I said, the Chiefs are 17th in yards per play allowed in defense, and they're 25th in points per game allowed. There's a little bit of disjointedness there, but both of those have to improve if the Chiefs have to have their best shot at winning the Super Bowl. So that's all I want to say about the defense. I think that help is on the way. They're going to improve. And we'll see that traditional Steve Spagnuolo defense where they continually look better throughout the season. And doing the eye test, I think they look better than they did last year. They look faster. They're younger. They're getting to the ball better. There have been some issues with Nick Bolton kind of not playing to the level that he did last year, but it was hard to live up to what he was doing last year. You want to see him continuously improve. But as a whole, I think the defense can improve. They're going to get key players back. The help is on the way. They have good depth in the secondary, and you have to hope there's no injuries. But if they continue getting these new players, I think they're going to improve. So now we're on to grading Andy Reid for his performance versus the 49ers. And as always, there's the 4 categories that we're going to look at. One is team preparedness, the other key decisions, next play calling, and then the outcome. In terms of team preparedness, the Chiefs had 8 penalties for 84 yards in this game. And you watching the game, you might not have even remembered it or noticed it because these penalties didn't play a factor. But 8 penalties is a lot, and the Chiefs have something they can clean up, which is impressive to me because of how big of a butt whooping they put on the 49ers. They still had areas where they can improve. I thought the offense came out ready to face the 49ers' really good pass rush. And in weeks prior, they had come out and the offensive line just looked like they weren't ready. I remember the Raiders game. They had a hard time with Crosby. They had a hard time keeping Patrick Mahomes clean in the pocket. There have been other games where they struggled early on in the game with protecting Mahomes. This wasn't the case. They came ready to play, and the 49ers pass rush didn't start out of the gate strong like the other Chiefs opponents had earlier on in the year. Skyy Moore, he was a kind of a lone dark spot in this game as far as team preparedness goes. He muffed another punt, and that's the second of this season. And if you notice later on in the game, he wasn't back there catching punts. He had Hardman back there. I saw Skyy Moore in training camp catching punts. He did not look comfortable. I wonder if they're going to put him back out there again. I think he needs to be in the offense, catching passes, and maybe punt returning just isn't his thing. I will say that Coach Reid might give him another shot. Hopefully they can sort things out through the bye week, but I'm still uncomfortable with him back there. And you don't want him to muff one of those punts or fumble one of those punts and it end up costing the Chiefs the game. Another Skyy Moore problem was that there was on Mahomes' interception in the first drive of the game, he was running a curl route and he was supposed to come back more, and he didn't quite execute the play as it was designed, and that caused an interception to happen. And both Coach Reid and Mahomes talked about it after the game. Neither one of them, really threw much blame at Skyy Moore other than saying that, he didn't run the right route, but they said it was a learning experience. And I like that attitude. Don't throw guys under the bus. Just call it like it is. And if it's a learning opportunity, it's a learning opportunity. No need to throw a rookie under the bus. Aside from those issues, though, that Skyy Moore had in the penalties, both the offense and the defense played with a high level of intensity. They came out ready to play. The front seven in particular were on a mission in this game. They played with high effort throughout. And because of those couple issues with Skyy Moore and the penalties, combined with the team being ready to play, I decided to give Coach Reid a 15 out of 20 in regards to the team preparedness. As far as key decisions go, there were no challengeable plays in this game, and there were also no decisions to be made on the fourth down. So usually in the game, the Chiefs will have an opportunity to go for it on fourth down, but the offense was dominating so much that they didn't even have that occur in this game. You don't have to for it on fourth down if you're never getting fourth down, which is what happened in this game for the Chiefs. So I think they might have had one punt in the game, and it wasn't even a questionable situation. It was you punt the ball here 100% of the time. There were no issues with clock management. I thought Coach Reid did a good job managing the clock. He at the end of the second half, the offense was able to go down the field, get themselves in position for a makeable field goal. Did a good job working with the clock there. 11 seconds left. They decided to kick the field goal. Butker missed it. Something about Butker is when he goes out there, I feel so confident if it's over 50 yards. If it's anywhere from 30 to 40, I'm kind of like, get a little nervous, which is one of the most peculiar things I've seen for a kicker ever. Usually it's the opposite of that. But overall, Coach Reid did a great job making decisions throughout the game. One other decision that he made that wasn't necessarily a game decision, but was a personnel decision, he chose to put Pacheco in as a starting running back. Now, Clyde Edwards-Helaire still got a lot of play, which he should. He's a good player. But I thought moving Pacheco to that starting role was a really good idea. And I say that because he brings energy to this Chiefs offense. Watch him run the ball. Watch him smack into a linebacker. Watch him push a pile. You can just feel the energy when he's out there on the field. And that permeates itself throughout the rest of the team when they're on the field playing offense. So I think putting him in that starting role is a great idea. And I think it sets the tone for the Chiefs throughout the game to see that energy early on as opposed to working him later as a backup. I think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still going to get his looks. I think he's a good running back. He's a good player. He can catch the ball, and he's a good piece for this offense. And you saw that throughout the game. The Chiefs continue to use him. It's not like we're subtracting anything from Edwards-Helaire by making him the backup. No, I think we're just adding a new element to a Chiefs offense, which is that energy that Pacheco brings, that athleticism. One of these times he's going to break one of those runs, and it's going to be a thing of beauty. Because of all that, for key decisions, I give Reid a 30 out of 30. Coach Reid gets a 30 out of 30 there. In regards to play calling, oh boy, this was a game to behold. If you like offensive play calling, my goodness, the Chiefs are just on another level than the rest of the NFL. Coach Reid and Patrick Mahomes together, They are just playing 3D chess while everyone else is playing checkers. I could not be more impressed with this game as far as the way the offense executed their play calls and the plays that were dialed up. They ran 36 pass plays, 18 run plays, so they had 67% of their plays being passes and 33% being rushes, which is a little high. Usually Coach Reid is 60-40, but I don't care because they ended up getting 9.9 yards per play in this game. That is unbelievable. They were getting a first down on average with each play. That's just unreal. 8 different receivers caught a pass from Mahomes. Everyone was getting involved. Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling both had over 100 yards receiving. That's the first time the Chiefs have done that since 2000. That's just unreal. And both Schuster and MVS were continuously put in positions to succeed. So MVS was getting downfield, and Smith-Schuster was seeing delayed routes across the middle of the field in space. He was getting open. He was getting his guys open through the play calling. One play that was a throw to Smith-Schuster, I believe he scored a touchdown on it. It was a beautiful zone buster with a flood concept where both Kelsey and Juju were occupying the same space against the zone defense, and they kind of both branched outwards. And the linebacker, poor guy, had to decide what to do in a split second on that play, and he chose poorly. But even if he did choose to go for Schuster, Kelsey could have still caught the pass. So the linebacker, probably being coached all week, we're not going to let Kelsey beat us. And so when the two players branched out of that flood concept, Juju Smith-Schuster was wide open for a huge play. It was a beautiful play design, and you love to see that versus some of the zone defenses that the Chiefs will see. I love those flood concept plays, and there's a unique wrinkle on that design to branch them out like that and put a really difficult decision on a linebacker. Incredible play call. I thought Hardman was utilized very well in the looks that he got. Not only was he getting the ball out in space, or not only was he getting the ball to stretch the field by running on the outside, they also ran that little pitch play. He had 2 touchdowns running the ball, 1 touchdown receiving. First time a receiver's ever done that in the history of the NFL. But he was also getting utilized using the field horizontally. So there were several plays where he was running the length of the field and really stretching the defense horizontally, putting a safety or linebacker in a horrible position to try to keep up with them. And that's utilizing what Hardman does best, is stretching the defense. Whether it's vertically or horizontally, his speed is a weapon. And if you make him run across the majority of the field horizontally, no linebacker or safety is going to be able to keep up with him. That's a tough ask. He was continuously put in positions to succeed throughout the game. And you got to love Hardman's desire to run the ball with some authority when he's on the outside. A lot of those guys that are smaller in stature, they're okay with just bouncing it outside and going out of bounds for a 5-yard gain. But Cole Hardman isn't that guy. He's going to run 5 yards to the outside, see a little tiny sliver to get through, and he puts his foot in the ground and gets upfield. As a football coach, or as if I was Andy Reid, that would just make me smile inside. To see a guy of his size willing to do this, put his foot in the ground, get upfield, and maximize the potential for that play. So Hardman did a wonderful job in this game, and I cannot give Coach Reid a good enough grade for the offensive game plan that he put out there against the 49ers. So I'm giving him 40 out of 30 points. He gets bonus here. 40 out of 30. That's what he's going with. And the outcome for the game, the Chiefs crushed a good 49ers team with a solid defense, very good pass rush. It was a road game in San Francisco. There had to have been some bad blood or maybe some desire for the 49ers to beat the Chiefs because of what happened in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. And the Chiefs just went out there and did business and destroyed a really good team. So I give the Chiefs 20 out of 20. In total, Coach Reid gets his first A-plus of the year. He gets 105 out of 100 thanks to those bonus points. Good old A-plus for you, Coach Reid. Great job. This is one of the best games that you've had so far in the season, and the play calling was just as good, or actually maybe even a little better than it was versus the Buccaneers. This was an incredible performance by both the Chiefs and Coach Reid in terms of how he coached up the team, got them ready to go from a gameplay standpoint. I cannot, give give Coach Reed enough accolades for the way they finished this game leading up to the bye. So with that said, what do you think? Do you think Coach Reed gets the A+? Do you think he deserves the A+? What did you particularly like about this game versus the 49ers? What plays caught your eye? What play designs did you think were awesome? Make sure you share that information in the comments. As always, like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm. Share this content with other Chiefs fans. And once again, I just want to say thank you for stopping by and joining me for a little time on Gridiron Lines. It means a lot to me. Appreciate all you for participating in this little thing that we do. That is RGR football. With that, that's all I got to say. This is Gary, signing out.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.